everybody. Welcome back from Vegas. Or just welcome to the writing workshop, even if you weren't in Vegas last week. So let me just take a minute. Wait a second, I need to adjust my sound. Hold on. I'm getting echoing. There, that should be better. Okay. Before we get started, let's do just a little bit of a sound check. I'm going to assume you can see me, but please weigh in if you can hear me. Hi, Brittany. Hey, Fred. Muffled. All right, let me see what I can do about that. I can't see this. Okay, is that better? Can you hear me better? A bit quiet. All right, let me turn it up a little bit more. I kind of miss having the sound people. We had sound people in Vegas, and it takes all the technical stuff that I don't really get out of my hands. Plus, of course, we had a professional setup. And if you could see that I am sitting at Starbucks, where I very often am in the afternoon when I'm working, and my computer is propped up on a box on the table, and the sound, the house music is playing here in the corner, and there's a lot of things here I don't have control over. Okay, but we're going to soldier on anyway, because what's most important today is that we work on our writing skills. So let me know if the sound is better, and we'll get going on our discussion for today. And hi, Natalie, and hi, Rodney. Thanks for joining us. I'm glad to see everybody in here. Still the same. Okay, let me try a couple more things. Oh, I'm gonna try this. All right, so now I'm on full-on volume. Can't give you anything more. Oh, look at me, I'm trying to sit closer to the screen. That's not gonna help. The microphone's over here. Maybe if it were, make sure my sweater isn't over it. How's that? Is everybody going to be able to follow along now? I'm excited to get going. I've really planned a lot of material for us to go over today. And I know that a lot of you are recovering from your trip to Vegas. The summit was awesome, but it was a lot of information and a lot of activity and a lot of fun and excitement all at the same time in a short period of time. And I, for one, was exhausted when it was over. But I can tell you that some of the things that I learned to help my business at the summit, I was able to start putting new things in place before I left Vegas. I was that excited. And I did learn a while ago that people who attend conferences, live conferences, their businesses tend to have a 10% increase, faster increase over those who don't attend live conferences. So my goal now for my business is to make sure that I'm one of those 10%. I've got to get that 10% bump because I want to make it worth my while. It's also worth my while to be there and to see many of you, and to get a chance to meet our coaches in person and meet a lot of our members in person. So it was a lot of fun. Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to start today with our grammar lesson. So let me just share my screen, and I have a simple yet interesting grammar lesson planned for you. This is going to be, why am I not sharing my screen? What's happening? This is not like riding a bicycle. I feel like I've been away from it, and now all of a sudden it's taking me, like I'm back on my learning curve. What is the story? Okay, I found the share screen button. Yay. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside, and I want you to take a look at this. Today's grammar lesson um, is going to help everybody, but I think that our foreign speakers, people who are not native English speakers, are going to be somewhat enlightened by this also. So I have two sentences up here. Let's just focus on the two that are on the top. Fewer than 20 employees attended the meeting, and I spent less than 1 hour finishing this report. What I want to focus on here is the use of the word fewer and the use of the word less. So to make this distinction, what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace less than 20 employees meeting. Let's just take a look at those two sentences. Fewer than 20 employees attended the meeting. Less than 20 employees attended the meeting. Somebody tell me, one is right and one is wrong. Which word is used properly there? Is it fewer or is it less? Any ideas? Okay, good. We're getting both answers. This is a confusing concept, and you find it used incorrectly a lot, actually, in public. It's one of those nuances that we talk about in writing that kind of separates your kind of separates the good copy from the really good copy. So the correct answer here is fewer. Fewer is used correctly. We do not say it this way. We say fewer than 20 employees attended the meeting. Um, the issue has to do with whether you can count. We can count 20 employees. That's fewer. That's not, we don't say less. Less is something that we can't count, like a smaller amount. Let's take a look at this example. I spent less than 1 hour finishing this report. This one's going to be confusing. I'm just going to compare this to, whoops, I spent fewer than 1 hour finishing the report. I think this one is a little bit more obvious. Which word is used correctly in this example, less or fewer? Is it I spent less than 1 hour finishing this report, or I spent fewer than 1 hour finishing this report? Okay, yeah, this one is a little bit more obvious. It just sounds kind of funny when you say fewer. The correct answer to this one is less. So it should read, I spent less than 1 hour finishing this report. Let me give you one other example and tell me if you think this is right or wrong. These cookies have less calories than the competition. Right or wrong? Less calories. What do you think? right, Brandy and Brittany. It's wrong. The proper phrase is fewer calories. Oh boy, what am I typing? Calories. You see that wrong everywhere in advertising, everywhere. Everyone says less calories. It is grammatically incorrect. Fewer calories. And the reason we use fewer in this case is because calories are individual things that can be counted. So there are fewer calories, kind of like in the first example. Employees are individual things, people, that can be counted. Fewer employees. In the other example, we use less when we talk about things like increments of time. We can't count that. It's not a tangible. It's not a tangible thing. So we say less. If another correct way of using this is for sorry. Let me get my example out here and then I'll show you. My son drank less milk today than usual. You know, when I compare that one, I think it's instantly obvious that less is the appropriate. And the reason we say less milk is because milk is a substance. While we can measure it, we cannot count it. So the correct version is my son drank less milk. And for those of you who are wondering, no, I don't have a son. That was just an example. Furious. I came in a bit late, so pardon me if I repeat. Fewer is applicable to discrete quantities, less continuous quantities. Yes, that's another way of saying it. Discrete quantities versus continuous quantities. In other words, things that we can count gets fewer. Things that we cannot count gets less. So that's less and fewer. I want to look at one other similar grammar issue. I'll bring up my sample sentences here. The use of the word number versus the use of the word amount. So there's a really large number of books in that library versus there is a really large amount of books in that library. Can you tell me which one is correct? Do we want to say a large number of books or a large amount of books? Yes, this is also a matter of whether you can count something, numbers. So the correct response here is there is a really large number of books in the library. Using the word amount, there's a huge amount of water going over the dam right now. That is the correct use of the word amount. So in the second sentence, why is it that we say a huge amount of water versus a huge number of water? I think that makes it really obvious. Can somebody explain why we say a huge amount of water rather than a huge number of water? Jurgis makes a good point. We say amount of water, but many gallons. You're right. So exactly, we can't count water. We can't count water, but we can count gallons. So we could say a huge amount of water or a huge number of gallons of water? Yes, Fred, it's the continuous quantity. Um, so that's our mini grammar lesson for today. Fewer versus less, amount versus number. And it all has to do with whether the noun you're working with can be counted or cannot be counted. Okay, let's move on. I want to talk today about improving the excitement of the copy that you write. So let me just stop sharing my screen for a minute because it makes me really uncomfortable to look at this blank screen in front of my face. There. Now somehow I feel like I'm looking at you. I'm not actually. All right, so I want to talk about another concept that, hang on, I gotta look at my notes here. Okay, I'm gonna illustrate it this way. Hold on. We're gonna talk about active versus passive writing. If you've ever heard anybody talk about the difference between active and passive writing, um, you know that generally we say that good copy, look at me juggle these windows. We say that good copy is usually active, and when you want to engage your reader, you want to avoid writing passive copy. So I've got a couple examples here that I want you to take a look at. Um, yeah, why did it bring up that? Okay. So let's focus on this little paragraph of description here. Let me figure out how to make this bigger for you, because I know you can't see that. Over here. My wish list here. Okay, so take a look at this bit of copy here. Whether you have a cross-country road trip planned or a weekend hike in the mountains coming up, a double-walled Bubba Trailblazer vacuum-insulated stainless steel water bottle, 40 ounce, will keep your drink hot or cold for hours without sweating. Good, bad? Any first any first impressions on that copy? What is it? How does it make you feel? Good, bad, excited, not excited? What do you think? It does feel like a giant run-on sentence. Bad, active voice. You know, it's interesting. It's not really written in the active voice, but it gives you the sense of activity because it talks about actions. It talks about cross-country road trip, a weekend hike in the mountains. Yeah, it has a little bit of a, it is passive, Fred. It has a little bit of a laid back kind of feeling. It talks about actions, but I don't feel the actions happening. Let's take a look at this other example. I randomly chose products for this, but I tried to uh, choose similar products, so we're dealing with similar descriptions. So I'll just bring this other paragraph over here. Oops. Make it nice and big so you can see it. Okay, so our second example. Keep life moving with our 21-ounce bottle and standard flex cap. It stashes easily into a small shoulder bag, your pack side pocket, or your car cup holder, and holds enough ice cube goodness to keep you going for hours without weighing you down. No wonder it's one of our best-selling water bottles. How would you think that that copy rates compared to the previous one? Better, worse? What do you think? Just first impressions. It does kind of sound exciting, doesn't it, Brandy? Keep life moving. It is better than the other one. Um, it is more active. The language is active. They're both talking about activity, but the language in this one is active. And so that's really what we want to strive for, is copy that has that sense of movement that is active. So that's what we're going to work on today. Let me pull up some. Gotta remember where I put it before I start moving windows around. Next thing you know, I'll be turning off the video. Here we go. Okay, so I have examples here that we're gonna work on. Let's start with these. And I will make these nice and big so you can see them. Okay, so I have a bunch of sentences here. Some are active and some are passive. And by analyzing these, we're going to discern how to write actively and avoid using the passive. So let's take a look at these first two sentences. Completely or just fading away? Let's take a look at these first two sentences. Ice cream is my preferred dessert and I like ice cream. They're both basically saying the same thing. So can somebody give me a sense of which one is more active? Which one gives you a feeling of action? Which one do you think is better? Okay, I see some votes for the top one. Is that for it being active or passive? I like ice cream too, Christian. The first one. Second one. Okay. The second one, I like ice cream, is active. Yes. The first one is passive. Notice how they say the same thing, but they say it in a different way. So in this first example, we have ice cream is the beginning of the sentence. And the person doing the action, me, liking it, is at the end. So we have this kind of cumbersome construction here. In the second one, the active one, it gets right to it. I like ice cream. I, the person, me, is doing something, likes ice cream. That's it. It's direct and to the point, it moves. There's no kind of laid back, inverted sentence construction there. I like ice cream, active. Let's take a look at the next one. Segregate this for you. Our insulated tumbler is preferred by active people like you. Or, active people like you prefer our insulated tumbler. Okay. Pick out which one is the active sentence. Our insulated tumbler is preferred by active people like you. Or, active people like you prefer our insulated tumbler. Yes, Natalie grabbed it right away. The second one is the active one. Not just because it starts with the word active. Excellent. Okay. Can you see the difference in the verb construction, in the sentence, in the structure of the sentence? In the second one, we have, it's very simple. People like our Tumblr. That's what the sentence is telling us. In the first one, we kind of have it backward, and we have the verb here is preferred versus the verb here is prefer. Clean, simple, present tense, straightforward. The stuff on this side prefers the stuff on this side. Straight. Subject, verb, object. Up here we have things a little laid back because they're all mixed around, because these people are actually doing the action. The action is 2 words, and then this part over here is the receiver of the action. That's passive. All right, one more pair. Let's take a look at these. This product was designed by experts with you in mind versus experts designed this product with you in mind. Tell me which one you think is the active sentence. Maybe I should have mixed them up. I think everyone's figuring out that number 2 is always the right answer. Yes, you are right. Number 2 is active. It's the same. If you notice, the verb in the first sentence was designed, kind of clunky. In the second sentence, the verb is designed. That's it. Yurgis, if I may, an active voice, subject does something, and the passive something is done to it. You're exactly right. That's another way of summing it up. So in the first sentence, something is done to it. So the product, being the subject of the first sentence, was designed by. In other words, something was done to the subject. In the second sentence, experts, the subject, are doing the action. The action is designed. So yes, that is another way of looking at it. Along with keeping your content active versus passive, another way of making sure that it's engaging is checking the tense. Yes, all right, I'm going to pause here for a couple questions and comments. I'm sorry, I'm moving along too quickly. Brittany, I've been making my sentences way too long in my listings. Yes, okay, great, thank you. Yes, this will clear it up for you. Active is always more vivid. Yes, there's a sense of movement. Someone is doing something to someone else. Something is happening versus we're sitting back and observing what's happening. No, we're in it. I'm not watching the action. I am doing the action. Okay, does anybody have any questions at this point before I move on to present tense? Okay. So let's, oops, I'm doing this backwards. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to make that come on the screen and that go off the screen. I'm doing a bad job. Let's do this. Let me just grab this and go back. I was doing a much better job when I was working at the top of the page. So let's just clear the page here. You know, back in the day when I did this with a piece of chalk and a slate chalkboard, I know that is how old I am. In some ways, it was a lot easier. Okay, so here are some examples. Okay, so present tense. Our product is going to improve your social life versus our product can improve your social life. Um, which do you think is better? Which seems more active and more engaging? Our product is going to improve your social life, or our product can improve your social life? Okay, wait, we have a little dissension in the ranks here. No, I think that, Fred, I think that Jurgis is agreeing with my point. Um, maybe he's expressed it in a way that sounds contrary, but I believe he's with us. He's just summarizing in a different way. But his comment that active is always more vivid is correct. Okay, so out of these two sample sentences, our product is going to improve your social life versus our product can improve your social life. You're right. The second one is clear, present, and active. It's 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 succinct. It has the action. In the first one, it says is going to. Um, that is a future projective tense. It is going. It will at some point. Well, if it is, we don't know yet. Maybe it won't. There's too much. There's too much speculation there. There's too much time given. This verb, can, is very clear and active. Our product can improve your social life. Now, notice that it also is not emphatic. I didn't say will because I'm hedging a bit of a guarantee there. But can also implies that there's a chance it won't, but it is much more clear it's doing it now. It can. As soon as you buy it, our product can improve your social life. And no, I have no idea what product I grabbed this from. I don't even want to speculate. Let's take a look at, how do I make that? Okay, there we go. Another sample. You will get a better night's sleep, or you get a better night's sleep. This one is kind of close, but tell me which one seems more active and therefore engaging. Yes, Brittany, you're right on it. The second one. You get a better night's sleep. Yes. Again, the problem is that this is a little too cumbersome. Will get. You get. There's no will. There's no future. There's no, it's now. You get it. Plain and simple. You will. You will is future. You get is now. We want to keep things in the present tense to make them active and engaging, um, and to make your copy stand out. All right, so let's talk for a second here. What am I doing? Uh, am I back? Can you see me again, or are you still looking at my desktop? I'm lost. Okay. All right, so this was a fairly short lesson, but I want to talk now about how you work this into your process. And first of all, why is it important? Thanks, guys. Um, See, you say, I see you, not I will see you, or I will get to see you. You say, I see you. Simple, clear, present, active. Um, okay, so this is what active voice and present tense are the things that engage people. There's movement, there's action. They don't have to read over a lot of extra words, a lot of clunky things in the verb, and try to figure out when this is taking place or how this is happening. It's active, it moves you. So this is important in writing really good copy because that's what people are looking for. It kind of jumps at you. You don't want to talk about activities, you want to have action. Um, so when you're writing your product descriptions, when you're writing any kind of marketing copy, when you're writing blogs or anything on your website, you want to keep it engaging like that. Even when you're writing, say, writing the about page on your website. Remember we talked about how when you write your about page, you want to tell a story of some sort. That story should be active and in the present. Nobody wants to hear 7 years ago. Put it in the present tense. Get it moving. As Brittany pointed out, I think it was Brittany, shorter sentences. Shorter sentences usually indicates that you are writing in a more active, because if you think about it, if you look at the examples that we did, passive writing included like 2 or 3 word verbs, and added other words like by and to put the meaning together. Whereas we said in all those active sentences, we said, you know, like the same, we expressed the same idea in 10 words in 5 words. Robert, in bullet points, how many keywords would you recommend in keeping it in the active voice? I know you want to keep it short. Bullet points are actually a super concentrated example of using active. Because yes, bullet points, you don't even want to use the full sentence. So you want to get right to the keyword and right to the verb and right to the emotion, as we talked about in previous lessons. Writing an active voice sometimes takes practice. In fact, for most of us, it takes practice. And if you're not a fluent writer to begin with, or you're not a fluent English writer, it's going to take a number of different drafts, but that's okay. So what I want you to be able to do is take the lesson from today and be able to go back and apply it to your writing. So here's a process that I would suggest. Draft your, say we're talking about a product description, whether it's the product description on your Amazon listing or on your website or wherever it is, you're describing your product, you're talking about your product in a way that you want to motivate people to buy it. So this is marketing copy. So you draft your copy, write your description, write it out kind of longhand, as I would say. And then go back and analyze your sentences just the way we did these sentences. Find the verb. Is the verb present tense? Is it saying doing it now? Is it happening now? Or is the verb 2 or 3 words put together? That's usually an indication that it's not as active as it could be. Strip out that extra stuff. Sometimes when you take a sentence that's passive and you turn it into active, what you need to do is flip the sentence around. So the subject that's actually doing the action, you may find it at the end of the sentence. When that happens, you want to make this active. You want to move this to the beginning of the sentence. Whatever or whomever is doing the action, you want that at the beginning of the sentence. Then you want a very quick, concise, active verb, and then the object, whatever they're acting on. That is a really good way to sort out your active words, get rid of the passiveness in your writing. All right, I'm going to pause there and see if I've got everybody all confused. How about using active words in the title? That's a great idea, Natalie, except in the title, we want to avoid using any verbs at all. So we don't really want to show action because we want to keep that title concise, concise and succinct all at the same time. We want to keep that title concise. We want to keep it short, and we want almost every word in that product title to have some search value. So I wouldn't be so worried about using active voice in your title because, like I said, you're not really using verbs because you're not writing a full sentence. It really more applies to your product description. All right, who else has a question for me? Okay, this will put the keyword at the beginning, which ranks better. Yes, very often, yes. So in your Amazon listing product description, that will matter. In your bullet points, that will matter. In your product descriptions on your website and other marketing writing, the keyword ranking won't matter, but that activity. And I think just in general, you got to figure that anybody who comes to your website or looks at your listing is only going to spend a short period of time. So get the important ideas at the beginning of the sentence, at the beginning of the paragraph, in case they don't read the rest of it. So if they read the first 5 words of a 10-word sentence, yeah, the name of your product and some exciting descriptor for it should be there. Okay, let me flip it around on you guys and ask you what barriers you can see to writing actively. Why do you think it might be difficult, or why do you think that people, you or other people, might fall into the trap of writing more passive descriptions? Okay, so we could come up with no barriers. Whoop. Most of the time we talk about what we did versus what we are doing. That's a really good point, Robert. When you're describing your product, I mean, think about it. You've gone through this whole process of designing this product and building it. And that was a lot of work, and that took place in the past. By the time you're describing the product, you did optimize it, you did differentiate it, like all that's in the past. So yeah, you have to kind of flip it around and think it's happening right now. Good point. Jurgis is going to teach us something too. Accepting that your first draft will be god awful will be your savior. If you try to write the perfect copy on the first go, will make you freeze up and feel great anxiety. Write a terrible piece first and accept that, then go on to revise many times, each time for something different. Excellent, excellent. That is an excellent strategy. I used to teach that to my high school students. So we would start off with blank piece of paper, and I would have some students go, I don't know what to write. and I'd say, okay, well, you're going to describe, whatever it is they're describing. Okay, but I don't know what words to put on the paper. And the fear is that you're going to have the wrong answer. You're going to put the wrong words down. So as Jurga says, accept that, yeah, you are, but that's okay. Put them down. Once you put something out on the paper, we have something to work with. Until it's out there, we've got nothing. So accept that it's going to be wrong, and that helps you to just freely write. Sometimes when I get stuck on something, like say I'm writing for a client and I have to describe something, and so I do my little research and I check out what it is and I learn all about it, and then okay, now it's time to do the description, and I get a little flustered trying to put all the right elements into this thing. I just stop and just write. No one's going to see it. Just write. Get it all out. Say as if you were talking to somebody. How would you say this to someone? Get it all out. And then you can manipulate your words and fix it. Then you can weed out the passive stuff. Then you can move the interesting ideas to the beginning. But you have to start somewhere. That's a great idea. Brittany, tend to be wordy. Yes, I think some of us prolific writers tend to be wordy. I run into the same problem, and I go back and I realize that some of my writing work is about filling a word quota. And when there's something that I don't think has a whole lot of interesting things to say about it, suddenly sentences start to get long, and there's a lot of reallys and veries thrown in there, and it is a bad habit. And you just have to go back and learn to weed them out. So write it really long and wordy the first time, and then go back and fix it. Yes, Fred, it takes practice to analyze your own work, but once you get in the practice of doing it, it tends to be easier. Natalie, there's no better time like the present, so I can definitely see how it can bring value to the description. Absolutely, absolutely. Brittany, I will now analyze much more. Yes, yes. The other good thing about learning good editing or analysis techniques is that you can help each other. Once you get a draft out, even if it's, as Jurga says, the most god-awful thing ever, there's something to work with. There's something to share with someone else. So like, have a writing partner. Say, all right, I'm going to send you my awful first draft, and you're going to help me fix it. And you're going to send me your awful first draft, and I'm going to help you fix it. Sometimes when you have someone else's eyes looking at it, you get to see it from a different perspective. I think this is especially important when you're dealing with describing your own product, because like I said before, you put a lot of time and effort into that product. You worked on it, you built it, you differentiated it, you communicated with suppliers. And so at some point, your brain is so saturated with that information that you've kind of lost sight of what the customer is going to see or what the customer is going to be interested in. So exchanging descriptions and exchanging paragraphs with each other, and getting an outside perspective can be really helpful. Obviously, the best way to do that is to accept that your first draft is crummy, and that's okay, and be okay with sharing that and saying, hey, this is what I came up with. I know it's terrible, but I'm looking forward to your input on it. Fred, newsprint is usually a good example of this. You're exactly right, because in the old days, reporters were limited on how much, printing was expensive. So, well, it is again now. Printing was expensive, so reporters were limited. And so they needed to get out just the facts and not add a lot of flowery description. And their job was to include the details without taking up too much space. Of course, now we have the internet, so everybody can write on and on and on about everything. Yes, great. Once you have something down, it's much easier. Yes. Recommend any books on writing? Let me think about that for a second. Natalie, I'll come back to you. This would be a great Facebook page for the group to exchange descriptions. Yes, you're right. There's let me figure out, let me talk with Seth about how we could possibly set that up. I don't think we want to have a separate page, but it kind of makes sense to me to kind of pull that out of the main description. Otherwise, they're going to get lost. Maybe if we just used a hashtag. Let's come up with a really specific hashtag to use. So if I have a product description paragraph that I want somebody to review, I post it with the hashtag. We can't use the word review because that has other connotations to our group. It's got to be something about writing. It's got to be something about product description. We'll work on this, Robert. We'll come up with a good hashtag, and then, yeah, we can post with that hashtag, and then writing buddy. I love it. Perfect. Yes, let's use writing buddy. Hashtag writing buddy. So when you post something with that hashtag, that means I want someone else to use your what we're learning about writing skills to help me improve this paragraph. Let's keep it to, a paragraph or two at a time. Otherwise, people will be overwhelmed. All right, what did I skip? Oh, Natalie, I said I would get back to you on a book about writing. I'm going to have to do some research, honestly, on that one. I occasionally use a reference book. Of course, nobody uses books for anything anymore, right? I often use the online dictionary.com. I'll use the thesaurus.com to come up with some more interesting descriptive words. In terms of writing style, there's an old reference book called the Little Brown Handbook, which basically talks about style. A lot of online writers now are using the Chicago Style Manual. That's another style. So these are reference books, and I'm sure they're available online, where you can look up points of style, kind of like comma rules, to see if you're doing it right. I'm sure they have a section on passive versus active writing. So you might try that. I will look into whether I can come up with some other books specifically about training or learning how to write. The best way that I know of to learn to write is to read, because you take in a lot of information. And when you read, your writing tends to come out in the style of what you read. So like I happen to prefer Victorian novels, which is probably one of the reasons that early on my writing became those long, flowy, flowery sentences. If you read things that are written in the style that you are trying to emulate, you will get better at it because you kind of get that voice in your head from reading them. That's another good technique for foreign speakers. If you're not a native English speaker, when you write, we learn a lot of language from listening, from talking to people. And so if you write something in the style, in the voice of someone like your English teacher, it's more likely to come out grammatically correct. Versus if you hear in your head the voice of, I don't know, somebody who's not a native English speaker. They tend to get word orders a little bit differently. And if you write with that voice in mind, then your writing is going to be not necessarily grammatically correct in American English. So one of the other really good ways to learn how to write or to improve your writing is through practice. So you're going to read to practice listening to writing, and then you're going to actually practice writing. And when you do it frequently enough, you're going to get really fluid at it, which means you can bang out a paragraph pretty quickly. And then once you start analyzing your work and then going back and repeating it, eventually you're going to get to a point where it's not your first draft is not quite that god awful, because you've practiced analyzing your work and getting rid of that passive voice over and over again. So now the active voice is going to start to come more naturally to you, and it's going to flow right out of you. Okay, what else do we have? High school has good books as well. Yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh, if you're in touch with um, either the high school teachers in your community or high school teachers from when you were in high school, oh yeah, go in and borrow some books. That's a really good way to learn also. Okay, do we have any other questions? We've got a couple minutes left. If anybody wants to ask just some random writing questions, they don't have to be on passive and active voice or fewer or less. No more questions? I'm never sure how long to wait because I know there's a little bit of a delay. Okay. And I don't want somebody to feel like I cut them off. In my opinion, one of the worst things you can do is try to copy someone else's style. It will not be you. Practice, 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 and be logical. Um, yes, there is a difference between hearing a voice in your head and emulating that style and actually copying someone's style. And you know, as a writer and a former English teacher, I never condone copying. It's plagiarism. You can do it yourself. Just get some help. Yes, writing is difficult, but so is riding a bicycle until you learn how to do it, and then it seems like no big deal. Same with driving a car or any other, playing a musical instrument. It seems really hard until you learn how to do it and practice, and then it kind of becomes like second nature. We need to identify exactly how many characters are allowed for each product or we get suppressed. That seems sort of ominous, Fred. In terms of the characters in the product title, um, in the bullet points, in the product description, because all of that is listed if you go into Seller Central. Look up in the help, and it's all listed up in there specifically. In fact, they recently changed it, as we talked about a few weeks ago, the number of characters in the title in particular. They're still accepting, I want to say 250 characters, but they're saying that really the first 50 are the only characters that really count. Clearly, Amazon is moving towards trying to get shorter, more concise titles, which makes a lot of sense. If you look at a lot of the product titles in their catalog, you can't scan them and figure out what in the world the product is. They want things where you can instantly look at it, almost like looking at a picture. You look at the title and it's, oh, it's a water bottle. Yeah, there's a couple extra words in there, but it's not a lot. What did you order from Starbucks? Oh, hey, Natalie, I'm a tea drinker. So when I'm at Starbucks, I've been on chai tea this week, but I just like the quality of the tea here versus some of the other places that I could go. So that's what I enjoy when I come here. Okay, are we wrapped up for today? We came in a couple minutes early, but if nobody has any other questions, um, hashtag writing buddy. I will put a post in the Facebook group, so that everyone can participate with that hashtag. I think that's an excellent idea. And this is just one other way that we can share our collective knowledge and help each other to be better. I think this is great. So I'm so happy to see so many people attending the writing workshop. This is excellent. And next week's topic for writing workshop is going to be a little bit more of what I was talking about at the summit. So if you weren't at the summit, I don't want you to miss out on that. We did a little mini writing workshop, and I talked a little bit about the connection between the skills that you use for your Amazon listing and how you can translate those same skills into developing your website. So we'll be talking more about that next week. Okay, so it was good seeing everybody, and have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.